China, the science consulate of Switzerland in China. So what we do, actually, we connect the dots in education, research, and innovation, build bridges between China and Switzerland, and use this occasion also to show the best of Switzerland. So SwissX is around the world at 5 locations in Boston, where everything actually this year started 20 years ago. Excuse me, I have to look in this direction. So 20 years ago, we actually are in other locations like San Francisco, Shanghai here is the 3rd location. We're also in Bangalore in India, and also in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. So as mentioned before, we actually connect in education, research, and innovation, art, science, and this is actually what we also do today with this Café series. And as you see in the invitation, it's already our 21st event, and we are extremely proud that it's without any break since almost 3 years that we have this series every month on the 3rd of Thursday. So today's edition, together with all the other editions, we give a chance, a platform for Swiss and Chinese scientists, but also to give startups a platform to present what they are doing. So since today's event is also a kind of a part of the Future of Money series, which also has a history of 10 events. So we did events in Hong Kong, in Shanghai, in Beijing in this regard. And actually this series we started back in the US, in Boston, and also in New York. We had events at Wall Street when we took it over also to do events here in China as well. So past topics involved AI, big data, blockchain, and also sustainable investing, to name a few. And we think fintech is an extremely interesting example to talk about one area that concerns all of us. It's money. and money will also exist in the future in one or different forms. And maybe today we learn very interesting insights how actually the future, how we will use money in the future using blockchain technology behind it will be applied. So I'm extremely excited now to give the floor to our first speaker. So we have two speakers, one speaker here with us and one speaker in Switzerland who will be joining us after us. So I would like to give the floor first to Dr. Xu. She's Deputy Director of Smart Industry Research Center of Tencent Research. Please give a warm welcome to her.
Hi everyone, thank you for the invitation to this event. And I'm very honored to be here today, especially the offline event. Since the COVID-19, we have organized a lot of online conferences, and this is actually the first time I'm in an offline event. So today I'm going to give you a brief introduction of my research on blockchain. We'll show the slides. So my topic today is around a word called industrial blockchain. That is how we understand blockchain from Tencent's point of view. Blockchain is always a very trendy word, a trendy technology since the past 10 years. Actually, it developed from a small hacker community, or at least we say crypto community, to all the big companies, internet companies, enterprises focusing on blockchain. So the concept of blockchain and application itself has evolved over these years. This year we proposed this idea, and in the presentation I'm going to introduce a little bit. Brief introduction of me. As David has said, I work for Tencent Research Institute to research in economic and the industry. And I graduated from Tsinghua University. And I'm also an old friend with SpaceNet, and I participated in a lot of events since I was a doctoral student. And now my research mainly focuses on AI and blockchain and how is their business and social implications. This is a new book on industrial blockchain. On this book, within this book, we explain why is the era of industrial blockchain coming. What are the paths for the combination of blockchain and the real economy? And what are the landing and potential application scenarios of blockchain in various fields of real economy? So next, we want to first explain blockchain a little bit again. Usually we understand blockchain as technology, but actually through our perspective, it is not only a technology, it's a combination of tool, ecology, and their concept. And we see it's a tool because it's a distributed ledger and plus cryptocurrency and a consensus mechanism. If you use it, but if you merely use blockchain as a tool, as a database, it might not be very different from the original database. But if you think of it as an ecology of different participants, then it will bring a huge difference. And the concept of blockchain is different from other technologies such as artificial intelligence. It is a technology that has ideology by itself. The ideology is decentralized or weak centralized value system or a governance system based entirely on the digital world. So since it first wrote the technology, it's conceive a dream inside of it. So what we are doing now, maybe towards it's a very beautiful picture in the future. But towards the past, we have to think of it, what's the best business and applications for blockchain. Next one. Why is it important? As Pascal just said, as Felix just mentioned, it is related to money, to currency, to financial. That's why it is important. We can think of the internet itself before the payment system. The only business model is advertisement. No matter Sophos, Sina, or Tencent, it is a very simple business model. But after Tencent Pay and Alipay emerged, we have so many more business ecosystems online, like games, taxi, group purchase, e-commerce, everything emerged after this. So it is very important to create a new value system from blockchain. So if we look at the market of blockchain right now, we can see 4 kinds of participants of blockchain markets, unlike in the past. The first type of participants is IT leader, just as Facebook, Google, Amazon, or Tencent, Ali, these big internet companies. These companies usually take blockchain as the similar function as cloud service. It is usually based in cloud system. We call it blockchain as service, and provide the solution and services to enterprises. The second is traditional finance. It is also using blockchain to save the cost and to bring a subtle change to the traditional finance system. The third is consulting company. They want to provide blockchain solutions to traditional industries to see how blockchain can cut the cost of traditional industry services. But it is also not rapid change. The fourth type of participants is startup company. These are mostly, I think, it's abroad. And these companies try to, driven by open source community of developers, they attract users and let users to create a whole different type of ecosystem by using, if they launch their own coin or as a stimulation system to let the business evolve by itself. So mostly we can see these are the 2 types of blockchain developed right now. The whole new way and the way that emerged with the traditional system. So what company like Tencent doing is trying to bring blockchain into the traditional system and to gradually change the system. To give you a more introduction, so Microsoft is trying to embrace open source and add code to Azure by using blockchain. And Google has early investment layout with cloud service. They invest a lot on blockchain. And IBM also takes blockchain as a system that can merge with cloud systems. But Facebook, it started late, but it brings a whole new different way by launching the stable currency named Libra. I think most of you have heard of it. It is a very important thing, no matter, not only in the crypto world, but also in the traditional internet society. Because by launching Libra, and these in the right picture, you can see all of the companies are the first company in the alliance. They can use Libra and exchange the values within the system. So in this way, you can find, and it is something, I think it's something similar to WeChat Pay, but it's more globally, and that you can use the new payment system itself and to attract new ecology collaborators with you by the new currency. So how does blockchain plays a role in the industry? We mainly think there are 3 points in this. First is to solve the disadvantages of centralized system. There are many, if you think of a company will launch something valuable, you may trust it because of its name. No wonder it's a state-owned company or it's a big company like Tencent and Ali. But if you are a very small startup company, SOM, and then it's very difficult for you to own trust in the first stage. So, but with the technology system, it can bring trust to the users at the first stage. And the second role of blockchain is to solve problem of multi-trust collaboration. As you all know, the blockchain is the industrial blockchain has alliance of the different stakeholders on the chain. So every one of them has the equal rights, and the data itself is encrypted. Only the one has can access the data. So it provides the possibility of collaboration while you have your privacy protected. So it's a very important way to urge collaborations between different parts, especially in the data society. The third part is also a very important thing in the future, that is asset digitalization and the digital capitalization. How to understand these 2 words is you can put the traditional financial products on blockchain. That is we call asset digitalization. And the second the second thing is we are producing so many data, IPs online. Itself has the value, but the value hasn't been. It's difficult to evaluate how much they worth right now. But if you put those valuable assets on blockchain, then it will find a way to evaluate these data properties. So we also have a comparison of blockchain transformation in different various industries. We have two parts to evaluate its liability by the feasibility and influence. If industry itself is highly digitalized, then we think that it is easier for the industry to have a transformation, blockchain transformation. And the second standard is the influence. The area like finance and social governance, they have higher influence than the other industries. So you can see these circles, finance, social governance, entertainments, they have the highest possibilities of blockchain transformation. Next, I'm going to give you 2 examples of what have we done using blockchain and to use in enterprise. The first example is blockchain in supply chain finance. We all know that blockchain can uh, the the finance of small and micro enterprises is very important to search the economy in a country. But usually in a supply chain, it's very difficult for small and micro enterprises to get the loan. But if you have all the data of the supply chain to resistant on the blockchain, then you can track very transparently what is the data and the financial situation of those small companies, no matter it's on the upstream of the supply chain or downstream of the supply chain. Then it's very easy for those companies to get loans. They don't have to be a company that has begins. The second example is blockchain and electronic evidences. So in the past, we know that electronic evidences is becoming more and more important in today's world. If you write an article online, it's very difficult to protect your IP. You have to go to the court to get people to notify your evidence. But if you what we have done is we have built a blockchain that if you publish an article on WeChat, it is instantly listed on the blockchain, and the court can use the evidence as electronic evidence and to protect your IP immediately. So it has saved many millions of infringing works from the shelves with average more than 300 times a day. So in the future, we think blockchain is not only a category by itself. It is very important to have blockchain to collaborate with other technologies such as Internet of Things, cloud computing, and AI. By collaborating Internet of Things, it can link up to physical world and real-time data on the blockchain and to make it more trustable. By collaborating with cloud computing, price development threshold will drop sharply, and it will be easier for enterprises to use the blockchain system. And by collaborating with artificial intelligence, we know it is very important for the development of machine learning to get data from different stakeholders. And usually it's a big problem to how to share these data and provide privacy at the same time. So we also think it's a very good solution to share the problem of multi-part computing and to protect the solution of data. So from this brief introduction, maybe we can get us a brief idea of what is industrial blockchain and how it can link with different industries to transform those traditional industries. I think it's not a work of the technology companies like us. It is also the work to be done by traditional industries. They can know what's their shortcomings and how they can have a way to connect with blockchain. This is my introduction.
Thank you very much, Dr. Xu, for the very deep insight talk, and I think also for setting the tone of the continued discussions and presentations. So the next presentation will be given by Claudio Tessone. So he's a professor for network science. He's the academic director of the UCETA Blockchain Center of the University of Zurich. So please also give Professor Pisoni a warm hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Felix. I hope that you can hear me correctly. I am going to share my screen. I'm sharing my screen now. There it is. So it is for me a pleasure to be here tonight in China, today afternoon here in Switzerland, to talk a little bit about the activities that we have at the Blockchain Center of the University of Zurich, and very briefly about the research activities I am performing in the area that pretty much complement the fantastic presentation right before mine by Xu. And in a way, the main message that I would like to convey today is the necessity to have interdisciplinary approaches to not only to do research or to teach about blockchains, which are part of our activities in any case, but also to design and move all this field forward in the next years. And perhaps this is what is going to be the conclusion that I would like to draw at the end. Before I start, as I said, I would like to introduce you to what we are doing at the University of Zurich. But as you may all know, blockchains are first and foremost repositories with data that can be trusted because of different reasons by the parties that connect to them, and importantly, that they cannot be tampered with. The data that is contained in these systems becomes immutable the more data we have been appending to these records, okay? Which makes them very resilient to attacks in terms of the information that is contained on them. So, as much as I find cryptocurrencies a very interesting research topic, because they give us a lot of lessons of things that you should, and in many cases of what you should not do, we always have to draw this distinction between the applications of blockchains that were so vividly explained in the previous presentation and cryptocurrencies. But what is always persistently found in all the systems that are based on blockchains is that socioeconomic aspects play a very important role in understanding them. They are not just a technical solution like a database, okay? They are something that goes beyond that because of some elements that pervade them that we'll explain in the next minutes. But one thing that also we should remember is that because of the data immutability that you have inside of the systems that is warranted by the system, we have an unprecedented level of detail in terms of information, and actually with respect to the systems that are recorded in blockchains than anything that we had before. And this is something that allows us to do not only data analytics, but also data intelligence, okay? And this is something that I would really like to see that move forward in the future. But so blockchains are important, as I said. Socioeconomic aspects play a very important role. Also the regulation. Regulation is paramount to understand whether there are some things that are allowed or not, or whether some implementations can be easily accepted in some jurisdictions or not. And in the past years, and this is why, partially because of this, also SwissNext is organizing this today, this event, is that Switzerland became one of the most important hubs for blockchain development in the world. And this is based on various factors. Some of them include the highly skilled workforce that we have here in Switzerland, but also the regulation that continuously adapted to this new reality and changed or incorporated new families of business models. And already in 2017, together with other professors of the University of Zurich, we started a center that was informal first, and the last year it became a competence center of the University of Zurich. That is the blockchain center of our university, which is nowadays the largest academic initiative of its kind in Switzerland. And we have a set of mandates by the university board that we are happy to follow. The core idea that we have in our blockchain center is what I said before, is that blockchain can only be understood with a solid, well-grounded interdisciplinary approach. And this is why the University of Zurich is well positioned to do that, because at the University of Zurich is the largest in Switzerland. I know that it will be dwarfed by many Chinese universities, but in this country it's the largest in terms of two things, in terms of students, but also in the variety of topics, of subjects that are taught in our classrooms. And the blockchain center then follows this characteristic of our university, and we approach blockchain-based systems with around 3 pillars of knowledge. One of them is understanding the technology, developing the technology, but also looking into the regulatory issues and the implications of some applications of the technology. Okay, because you cannot, understanding the technology by itself is not enough to lead to a sustainable growth of blockchain-based systems. But also, blockchains are pervaded by economic and financial incentives, business models, and so on and so forth, that were also so neatly explained before. And the question is, how do they work? Because actually these economic systems are very different from the ones that we have been knowing for decades or centuries, okay? So we have to understand a lot of economic aspects of these systems, and I'm going to give you a few examples in a few seconds. And in order to understand these 3 pillars, we do this, as I say, the interdisciplinarity is not doing research on different disciplines, it's combining them and bringing them together into a common knowledge pool. And this is what we do. We have 2 cross-cutting approaches to this research, that is performing very extensive data analytics on these records that are stored in the blockchains, and also based on this combining technology with emergent properties at the economic level, or understanding also whether some, for example, wealth concentration may have some legal consequences on the allowance or not of certain technologies. But also, once we have understood the inner functionings of these systems, we want also in this interdisciplinary approach to design the systems and see how the technology, the regulation, and the business models around can all move forward together. And now we are 22 professors from 2 different faculties, 3 actually, that if you go through the list, you will see that you can find people ranging from accountancy to criminal law, for example, going in between with people from distributed systems or finance. And our main objectives are to foster and coordinate interdisciplinary research on the field. The second objective of our center is to create educational programs. We have an increasing range of courses for our students, but not only. This summer we hosted an international summer school, one of the 3 that our university offered to international students. And we had, as the situation mandated, we had an online version of it that was basically 3 weeks with 64 students from outside, 12 students from our university, 45 speakers, and a very neat combination between industry and academia, covering always these 3 pillars. But also we have a range of executive programs. And the important thing is that next year, the summer school is going to take place again. We welcome several students from Peking University and also from Shanghai. And we will be more than happy, and from Shenzhen as well. And we will be more than happy that this situation is repeated next year. But also we have programs of continuing education for people from industry, always organizing the courses across these 3 pillars I was explaining to you before. And the third mandate that we have, I said research, education, and also coordination with all the ecosystem. Okay, ecosystem means all the players that are, all the accelerating labs that are here in Switzerland, generating value around the idea of blockchain, many of the platforms, the most important ones we are in collaboration with, or we have been hosting events together, and academic institutions. Peer institutions are very important for our growth because as part of our strategy, the next step is internationalize our activities. And from that point of view, China is certainly a strategic destination exactly because of the very fast pace of development, not only of China, but also of the blockchain area in China. So I was speaking a lot about the blockchain center. Let me briefly introduce why blockchains are so important from the research point of view, and which are the lessons that we should learn from existing blockchain-based systems. Because a way of condensating the activities that I have in the area of blockchain is ranging from understanding blockchain-based systems to their future design. And this was already explained before. There were these very nice 3 points that you mentioned before about trying to fight centralization, trying to increase trust, and trying to digitize assets as 3 pillars. And basically, this is more or less what I wanted to say here. Basically, blockchains were built to try to destroy the centralization that we have in different ways in some of our economies. One of them was exactly because of this. We have centralized, for example, with payment systems, we have a centralized architectures in which we have actors that have unmatched power in the system. And this is also what renders the systems fragile at the end of the day. Okay. But also because the systems, actually more and more humanity has evolved. The original idea was that the people had when creating the first blockchain-based systems, which were cryptocurrencies, were let us try to find ways, alternative ways of incentivizing people to obtain part of the assets that are inside of the system because of their contribution to it, okay? In a way of decentralizing power in the systems. But also to increase anonymity. And if I have marked these 3 premises in dark orange, is the question that is very valid is whether all these premises fare in reality after the systems were deployed in the real world. And this gave a plethora of ways in which you can do research about blockchains. One of them is blockchain forensics, actually, because you can use techniques of data science, network science, that allow you to recover to a large extent the identities, but also the flow of assets in blockchain-based systems. So actually, remember what I said before, blockchains are immutable. And exactly this immutability is what allows people that inspect and that analyze the data contained in the systems to obtain a lot of information about past activities of users. So actually, even if people in some of the systems would like to remain anonymous, perhaps the technique that they use to anonymize themselves may work for some time, but the data will remain there. and experience has proven that the techniques to detect users and detect activities and trace back origin of assets has been improving constantly. So things that were anonymous a few years ago are not anonymous anymore. And then the area of blockchain forensics is a very fascinating way of discovering things that have been happening in these economies in the past and now. And one thing that, as a kind of conclusion for this, is that actually new blockchain-based systems, like this very interesting example that was given before about evidence, electronic evidence, basically works in this direction as well. You can resort on a lot of analytics tools that can convey you information about misbehavior of individuals in these systems, and at the end of the day, bring transparency to the systems that are recorded in the blockchains. But there are a lot of other problems that leak out of the way in which many of these blockchain-based systems were conceived. One of them is power concentration. You know that there is a wide range of blockchain-based systems, cryptocurrencies, that rely on given consensus mechanisms, and the research shows that actually the concentration of actors in this consensus mechanism has been increasing constantly. And remember, we wanted to create decentralized systems, but more and more over time, the systems became more and more concentrated in terms of power, of raw power of the people that connect to them, and fewer actors have something to say in appending information to these systems. And this is something that has to be fight, has to be designed in a different way. Another thing is that in cryptocurrencies, actually, people wanted to have decentralized supply. And when you analyze the data, when you go into the data and analyze it, actually you see that you have, once again, very huge amounts of concentration in the very reduced fraction of individuals actually are participating of the supply mechanism. This has nothing to do with the power concentration. What I'm saying is that even if there are few actors, the actors that are there are so little compared with the amount of people that are using this system that in a way they become trusted authorities in a system that should not have trust. And the final thing is that also economic processes that when are left unattended lead to wealth concentration are exacerbated by the nature of the economic nature of the systems that favors that people hoard the assets that are contained in them, and then the economy does not work anymore. Economies are always necessitate that circulation is enforced or that some redistribution takes place in the system. Given the fact that the cryptocurrencies do not have them, actually, they become weaker and weaker, or at least they show less and less economic activity. So the bottom line of all this research shows that existing cryptocurrencies have created very imbalanced economies in terms of power, in terms of wealth, and actually when you compare it, even with real world economies, and many of them are very unequal, these ones fare much worse than what happens in real economies. And why does this thing happen? And this thing happens because people that were designing this system were thinking of them in very, in many cases, in naive terms, if you allow me to say this. I mean, you cannot be naive. These technologies are amazing. What the people were able to create is unbelievable. But at the end of the day, there are some traps everybody was falling into. Okay, we know, for example, that the policies at which the assets are liberated in these systems favors speculation. The exploration around economic policies has been very limited, and all of them show a lot of weaknesses with respect to strategic attacks, strategic behavior of individuals. And all these things happen because some poor design choices have been placed and have hindered, therefore, the first generations of blockchain-based systems. And this is what we want to do, because and this is how we want to move forward, actually. Because All these systems represent, at the end of the day, an opportunity to learn from them. And something happens that in general, blockchains save information about some economic processes. They can be asset exchange, value exchange, records, but also about our society, okay? And all the systems, all the economy, all the society are complex systems. And complex systems cannot be controlled in a simple and rigid way. And most blockchain-based systems that have been designed so far have this tendency to rigidity in the governance rules that they have. And actually, quest towards preserving the status quo once they have been developed. And this is something that has to be reconsidered for the future generations of blockchain-based systems for them to succeed. So that's what I wanted to say, is that what you need is an adaptive design for these systems, guided by interdisciplinary understanding, because this is fundamental to really uncover the potential of the technology for societal good. Okay, and what I just said, and with this I conclude, this is just the beginning about blockchain research. We have recently submitted a paper in which we study all the landscape of technologies that have been developed so far, and this plot summarizes in a way the relative weight that different implementations have had so far in the blockchain space. These are different technological aspects, technological, economical, and governance aspects of blockchain-based systems that cover completely. And what I have been talking about to you only covers these few branches of what we have been doing research so far. And so there is a lot of potential to be uncovered, and there are a lot of things to explore that give huge potential to this technology, but we have to understand it, as I said, from a multidisciplinary point of view. So thank you very much. If you want, you can follow us in the social media. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Pesone. So we heard you excellent over here in Shanghai, and we are very grateful for your introduction to the Blockchain Center at the University of Zurich, as well as some of your research activities. The tree is amazing to see what's still left for your activities in research. So please, now it's a big honor to call for the panel. So we will move now to the moderator, David Zhang. He's the Vice President of the Shanghai Blockchain Association and also the CEO of Technology Digital Ventures. And there's one small secret. So David, he was also the moderator when the Swiss president was here in Shanghai. Well, actually, not so far away last year. We also had an event on fintech, and it was wonderful to have you. There's a moderation, so we wanted to have you back. So please give a warm hands to David. Thank you. You virtually join, well, here physically joining for the moderation is also Dr. Xu. Please join us here. And we also have in Switzerland, of course, joining Professor Pesone. And we also have actually with us from a very nice fintech, actually a think tank, to name it correctly, Luisa Kincius. She's a project leader from Synolytics GmbH, and as mentioned, a very talented think tank, and we are extremely happy to have such a prominent panel with us. And now I give the floor to David. Thank you.
Thank you. It's always a treat to come to Swiss Next China. Last time, I think President of Swiss Federation was sitting over here. But tonight I was a lot more stressful because tonight there are experts. Last time there's no experts. It is always a very special treat. But tonight is also a very special treat. Very rare you can be in a room, small room, where you get to hear what's happening inside one of the biggest, most successful tech companies in the world, and also you get to hear what's happening in one of the leading academic institutions in the world, and also you get to hear Sinonex, which is one of the well-known policy research company in the world. So we cover technology, we cover research, we cover policy insights. So it's very rare. So I got 30 minutes. 30 minutes is not enough when you are with so many experts. But I thank Felix to give me the power to ask questions. So I have some special questions. I'm going to ask 3 questions for Tencent. One for Tencent, and one for Tencent's client, and one for all those technology startups want to build tech on Tencent's ecosystem. So first, my question will be for Tencent. Obviously, Tencent is one of the most successful centralized tech platform in the world through history. Okay, centralized. Blockchain is a decentralized technology. So how is a decentralized technology survive in a very, very successful centralized technology platform? To me, the analogy would be a virus attack my body, and then my body will be generating our own antibodies. So is a decentralized technology like the virus living in a centralized platform?
Thank you for a very interesting question. Yeah, I think it is true and not true to say Tencent like a centralized company. If you look at the technology, it might be centralized because we have a database in Sichuan, which is all the database of Tencent is located there, as you know. And if you know how many products and services are running in Tencent, you might be amazed because I think it's more than 300 or more. So each product is launched by a small team. The Tencent actually it's like an ecosystem itself with many startups inside, but we have a system like an alliance to on the one side is the users attracted by all kinds of services and products of Tencent. On the other side, we not only provide service by ourselves, we also introduced our collaborators like Didi, Meituan, all the other internet companies or startups in China. We built this kind of platform ecosystem. So I think it's more of a platform than a centralized company, and that's the first thing. The second thing is that it is not even to say blockchain is a total decentralized thing or business model, because I think maybe in the past blockchain is decentralized. If you say all the products like Bitcoin, it's based all around the world of Ethereum. It's open source with all kinds of developers around the world. But if you heard my introduction before, if we want to make blockchain work in the industry, mostly we still have to introduce these decision makers in the industries, and there we will find several alliances in one industry. So if you want to use blockchain in industrial scenario, you might find different manufacturing companies and bring a new alliance for them. So I think it's in between of centralized and the decentralized path. And most big enterprises like Tencent is developing blockchain industry, and our motivation is to bring collaborations between those stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you. So how much time do I have?
Maybe another 15 minutes.
Another 15 minutes, okay. So then I'll ask another question. Because another question I have for CN is for tech startups. If I were a tech startup, when I'm facing Tencent, blockchain ecosystem, I am scared, I'm also excited. So how would you support tech startups to build exciting applications on your platform while they're also scared?
I think there is still a lot of rooms for startup to do startups in blockchain, because it's a very big ecosystem, and as I mentioned before, there are many industries can be transformed by blockchain. So it's very important for one startup to dig deep in one industry. Sometimes it's difficult to a big company like Tencent to dig very deep in one industry, because we have to cover all the industries or to build a platform. So I think there's room for collaborations.
So we don't have much time. I want to pass it first to Claudio. So Claudio, I hear your great presentation. I want to focus, given the time constraint, I want to focus on the internationalization part of your talk. You know, getting the blockchain technology is not just a technology. To me, it's a meta technology. It also touches social, legal, economic aspects. So obviously, we know that globally we have so many different regions, so many different jurisdictions. They all have different policies, different legal frameworks. So how do you scale your blockchain technology while you're living in a world which is very fragmented?
Unmute.
You have to unmute it.
Yeah. Now I'm here. So I think that the only way of doing that is starting small. So I think that why there was some backlash, also Libra was mentioned before related to this. Then this is a very good example, actually. This is something that's going to disrupt many of our activities in the future. However, bluntly trying to change the world immediately is not something that we will be able to achieve in a short period of time, and we'll have to adapt and increase the complexity of the solutions that we can provide in terms of blockchain as time passes. And I think that one way is segmenting even the solutions could be an option as well. This is another approach, which is, that you can have, for sure, but it is possible to have private blockchains that are more restricted, perhaps amenable to certain jurisdictions, and then having interchain settlements that allow you to comply with all the legal jurisdictions requirements. And I think that these are the two approaches, either disrupting the world one step at a time, or growing the coordination over time after we have learned how to settle all these different aspects. And here there is also another important point that one should mention, which is how difficult it is actually to transform regulation into code. And this is something that is in general and was severely overlooked by the first platforms that were developing blockchain-based systems with digital autonomous organizations, smart contracts, and so on. There was a confusion between programming and law, and the two things actually produce completely disparate results, and this is something that will have to be alleviated in the future.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to give the floor to Louisa. Louisa, giving your perspective, you do insights and analyzing tech policies globally, especially in China. I want to ask the same question for you. for emerging technology that is trying to scale, what do you help them with? To scale globally when you're facing different policies, globally, fragmented policies.
That's very good. Yes, I think that's a very good question. And first of all, yeah, thanks and welcome to everybody. Thanks for having me here as well on the panel, calling in from Berlin. Yes, good question. I mean, I'm very much looking at these things also from the China lens, as that is the field we are analyzing at Sinalytics. And I think actually, just looking from that perspective, the Chinese government is very committed to set global standards to actually achieve that, to be the global, not only trendsetter, but also standard setter in this way. But just a very recent initiative by the Chinese government showed how difficult it is. The Chinese government, for example, launched its blockchain-based service network, which is thought of as being the operation system for a lot of blockchain applications, and some also call it the Belt and Road Initiative of blockchain, basically providing basic infrastructure, and then not only in China but globally. They're already one of the leaders. I mean, China is one of the leading countries in terms of blockchain innovations, especially in the industrial sector, like Cian also presented that very lively, but so staying in its own way in this, in the sense that, especially in this field, this blockchain service network does not allow public blockchains in China. So initially it was thought of being one global network, which makes interoperability happen within China, but also globally. But just right after its launch, China now actually switched the governance structure, and there's one governance structure for the global network, and one governance without any state-owned enterprises being in the governance, and one domestic system as well. So I think that is just a very recent example showing that it's still quite a long way towards a global global standard and global application.
I would say maybe another 3 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll give a quick question to Cian and ask her to give us a quick answer. So Tencent is a 2C. I mean, obviously, we all know Tencent is a consumer tech company. But obviously, Tencent is moving aggressively into to B and to G. Now, the difference between C and B is C is very uniform, how we behave. So the technology company can quickly scale to 1 million people. But B, business are very unique. Each business are very unique. So how do you scale when you're facing, businesses, not consumers?
So one word, it's difficult.
Thank you. Yeah, so I want to open the floor to online audience and offline as well, on-site audience.
Maybe one on-site and then online.
Okay, one outside, one online. Okay.
Great pleasure to hear from the expert. So this is maybe a little bit tricky one. How much of your assets, your money is invested in blockchain? That shows your belief in that.
You're asking
If
Company or
whoever,
personal?
the person investor. Like if that's certain, I guess you don't have to believe yourself as well. If over 70 years, I don't trust. The first one. So the second one.
Your question is to whom?
Both, whoever. So the second one is about public chain and consensus. I think blockchain can be a root bond of those people who share the same consensus. But right now, every ICO is making their own empire. They are ruling they're cutting leads. And although for different usage, like there are Cosmos or Polkadot trying to link those together, but in the end, will there be a public chain or consensus to rule all. Liberal once was a potential one, but now trapped in this web of hearing of procedure right, all this stuff. So how do we think about the future? Will there be one public chain or?
Given the time constraint, maybe we should ask one question to people online and one for here.
Yeah.
So the first question, you want to ask me or ask Sia? The first question. Maybe you got the big one.
The first one to you.
Well, first, I spent a lot of time on decentralized technology. So to me, time is my money as well. So I obviously invest heavily of my time in decentralized technology. And I also play with Bitcoin. I don't really deal much with DeFi. I think that's a fact. Not ready yet, but there's a lot of scam. No, second question will pass it to online.
Well, I think that if I understood right, because can I see or was there, because I thought there was free will in this, yes? So if I understood right, the spirit of the question was whether in all this multiplicity of consensus systems that exist in nowadays, whether we're going to have a single one or not. This was the spirit, isn't it? Maybe I see you because I could not hear properly the question. Just want to confirm that I understood it right.
Can you repeat your question? I can hear as well. Can you repeat your question? Second question.
The second question basically is just which consensus or public chain do we think will ends up to not exactly how to say rule many industry or become a common consensus. Just like European Union, there used to be so many currencies, and you Europeans hate that. And now there are so many blockchains. So blockchain should be a root one for all the people, not so many small colonies. So that's my idea. Will there be a public chain?
Yeah, I understood it then. Basically, my understanding or what I think is that there is not going to be, this is what I like very much of blockchains is that they are different from other digital markets. Digital markets have a tendency to the winner takes it all scenario, in which there is someone that grows so much that is able to take out all the competitors in the market. At least is what happens in many of the services in which there is a market participant that finds a niche, and everybody else basically have a lot of difficulties to fight or to compete with that. Blockchains, in a way, do not suffer this problem, and I think that from that point of view, they are perhaps this is the best upside of the technology, is that many of these public blockchains can coexist as long as it is a social process. They need a community around, but there is no reason for the community not to be large enough, provided that there is an objective of that community. And so my answer to that would be that we will not see that a single blockchain is going to take over all the others, because, for example, first generation of blockchain-based systems lack a lot of functionality that perhaps people would like to add, and they will not, because of the way in which the communities work. And most of the blockchain or most of the open blockchain-based systems are going to coexist with others. And this is why the picture of the ecosystem, like in the natural ecosystems, is a valid one. And we will start to see more and more interoperability between these blockchain-based systems. And what I would say, my very wild guess is that we will see the only thing that can happen, and going back to the discussion that Luisa started before, is that this is not necessarily the situation with, for example, central bank digital currencies or any kind of settlement system that has support from government. Because there, the one that moves the first is going to have a huge competitive advantage with respect to everybody else. And because it's going to change completely the world map. And therefore, there I see a potential for a very large takeover by those that move first. In public blockchains, I think that the situation is going to remain much more vivid and in the sense of evolutionary.
We are
going to.
Sorry.
Take one online question.
Okay.
Lisa.
Yeah, let's take one. Okay, sorry. Because we are running tight on time. Let's take one online question for Luisa.
Online question.
No more. No. Okay. Why don't I ask a question for Luisa? A generalized question on the question that was asked. For any emerging technology, obviously, do you see from a policy perspective where the policy is going to be more encouraging a winner takes all, like Tencent will be dominating the world, or you see policy going forward will be encouraging more ecosystem-based technology where everybody has a chance? Luisa. So it's
Yes.
or it's a ecosystem where everybody has a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, good question. I think it's really then I'm again with Claudia, depending on which type of use case we are observing. So definitely for industrial use, I think the policies are currently designed in rather competitive structure and encouraging innovation. It's about setting the right stage to have multiple actors being involved, and that you also see in all kind of policy initiatives and in pilots that are, for example, being set up in China, which are always about engaging as much participants as possible, and also having huge alliances, which are then probably being built by one, which is a concentrated group, but still different actors. When you then look again at currencies, I mean, definitely in China, you have an approach which is strongly against any competition in the field of, I mean, you have a complete ban of cryptocurrencies, but the whole monopoly about the development of a digital currency by the government, by the People's Bank of China. So I think especially for China, it's quite, you can say whenever it's about control over state activities, like for example, digital currency, that is definitely something that will remain in the control. But then for others, I mean, for the industrial use, there's just, I think also just from economic perspective, no incentive set in that way.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Luisa and Claudia and Siyan for your interesting answers, especially the short ones.
So once again, a big thank you to the panel. And also thank you very much to Switzerland, to Professor Tessoni, and also to Synalytics. Many thanks. So definitely we learned that my main takeaway today is that blockchain definitely is a socio-economic meta technology, and I think this is just a start, so much more will come there. I think definitely today's event wouldn't be possible with strong partnerships, and it's not only the partnership that we have with the University of Zurich and also Synalytics, and on top of it also with SwissChan, Shanghai, especially there the digitalization committee. So we really would like to thank these partnerships, but it wouldn't be possible without the great team in the background with Sisi, who's standing behind the iPad, and also with Changtong Sherry and Suyao and Danley. Without you, this wouldn't have been possible. Really, once again, many, many thanks. Yeah, so please come back. We will have the next Café Business exactly in 1 month, so the 3rd Thursday of every month. And so we will announce the event. And now we go over to our reception. We prepared a reception here in the back. And before that, you have to earn it a little bit. So we make a small exercise. So if you can maybe help us to take your chair. And we stack them on top of each other, and then we have plenty of space. So once again, many, many thanks. Thank you.
Thank you
And
as well.
also to the
Bye.
audience, very many thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. Thank you, Lisa, for joining.